Welcome in, everyone, to College Football Coast to Coast. This is your host, supposed to be just a co-host, Mark Rogers, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Here we are. This is not, and in any way, and I don't want to run anybody off by saying this, but it's just the truth. This will not be the same College Football Coast to Coast that you have come to love and know and appreciate and embrace and make as a destination every Monday at noon Eastern time, because Pigskin Pete's not here today. So without Pigskin Pete, it's really not a College Football Coast to Coast. But since I'm honoring the time commitment, honoring the conversation with you, this is College Football Coast to Coast. But it's just me, just Mark, just the voice of college football. No Pigskin Pete. We miss him. We would love for him to be here. He has some issues that he needs to deal with. He has some obligations, and certainly we hope to see him back real soon. But we appreciate Pigskin Pete, and of course, the discussion is so much better with him. Therefore, we're going to try to take his place. We're going to try and attempt to fill the void with you. So I will open up the phone lines for the next hour at 860-325-3687, our regular call-in line for College Football Coast to Coast. Our number for the voice of college football, 860-325-3687. Before I take any calls, I will certainly dive into the live chat and answer your comments, your questions. Want to remind you of a number of things here. First and foremost, Pigskin Pete and I have gotten together for 18 consecutive weeks. And as you can see, the off season doesn't mean we're stopping. We will get together each and every Monday during the off season as well. Therefore, we would appreciate your contributions because we are going to work. This is our work. This is our dedicated platform. This is what we do each and every day. This is our career. So we need sponsorships. We are looking for sponsorships. So if you have any ties to any businesses, whether those be businesses that you own personally or a business that you're in close contact with that you can certainly put us in contact with, please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, MarkRogersTV at Gmail with any sponsorship contacts that you have. If you look at Pigskin Pete's platform, mine, you put them together, certainly we can benefit a number of people. I've looked into this on YouTube, and certainly there's no question that I'm not going to speak for Pigskin Pete, but I get enough subscribers, I've got enough views, by far, not even close, to be able to draw sponsors and legitimize sponsorship. So please, if you're connected to a potential sponsor, let us know. Hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Also, you can catch us on Patreon. I'm on Patreon. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Go to Patreon. It's 16 cents per day. There's a lot of great things that we have in store for you this off season. All right. The Super Chat's available as well. We will continue to bring you College Football Coast to Coast each week based on sponsorships and based on your individual contributions. So we thank you so much for that because Pete and I have certainly been appreciative of the Super Chat contributions we've received from all of you in recent weeks. My live schedule needs a tweak or two, adjustment during the off season here, and we will get that to you soon. By the end of the month, by the first of next month, I will be announcing when I can figure out what time I can dedicate, and I want you to be able to count on me going live at particular times during the week. Like the video. This is not necessarily important to me, would not be important to me, does not boost my ego in any way if people like the video or don't like the video. It's all about YouTube. It's all about YouTube analytics and algorithms. That you liking the video helps us build the channel, helps us build each particular video. When the video is viewed for an extensive period of time and liked, then what happens is YouTube pushes the video. So please like the video, share the video on social media. I heard another YouTuber say this week, and I will agree, that sharing the videos reaches people that we will never, ever reach otherwise, most likely. All right, and then also subscribe here, and also on Pigskin Pete's channel as well. Please subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. So a little bit different of a college football coast to coast this week without Pigskin Pete, and we again miss his contribution and part of all this. It's college football coast to coast. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Ballard again. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Ballard. How are you?
I'm doing great. Before I get into some college football, I know you're a busy guy, but have you gotten a chance to see any of the NFL playoffs this year?
Oh, I love the NFL playoffs. I love the NFL. I've watched yesterday. I pretty much watched both games start to finish. Yeah. Pretty much start to finish with my son. I'm trying to think, what was the day before? The 2 games before on Saturday, I watched. I do a lot of work while I'm watching the game, so I miss a lot, or I all of a sudden look up and see, oh, there's only 5 minutes left in the third quarter. What's going on? So I watch in that manner a lot, so I miss the details.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, man, I'm a Buccaneers fan, and for the playoff drought to be over, and now they're heading to the conference championship next week is pretty exciting for us Bucs fans down here in Florida. But getting to college football, sadly, we're in the off season. That means there's no more college football games. But obviously, at least you people are here at the Voice of College Football and everything for us. So we appreciate that. I want to get your thoughts. Alabama, look, the quarterbacks next year, not even just for Bama, but think of all the quarterbacks we're going to see. DJ Uyunglele, Bryce Young, I guess JT Daniels will be the likely guy for Georgia unless Brock Vandergrift can really show out or something. But it's going to be an exciting year for quarterbacks, I think.
Yeah, so we're going to have new quarterbacks at Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. For those that didn't see JT Daniels play the last 4 or 5 games for Georgia, you could throw him into the mix. We do have Matt Corral coming back at Ole Miss and Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. New quarterback at Texas. Same quarterbacks there at Oregon and USC. Yes, new quarterbacks, as is typical.
So what about, I haven't really heard a whole lot about Penn State players or anything. Obviously not the year that they wanted, but what's the update on, is Sean Clifford, is he still there, I guess?
Yeah, he's still there.
Does he come, I guess?
He's coming back.
He's draft eligible, but he's coming back?
Yep, he's coming back. That's the last I read. It's been within the last couple of days, and actually we're talking to a Penn State guy tonight, so we'll get the definitive word. But Penn State lost Pat Freiermuth, one of the best tight ends in college football. But besides that, they bring back their 2 best wide receivers, Parker Washington and Jahan Dotson. They bring back Noah Cain, their best running back, and Clifford at quarterback.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and again, like we were talking the other day, we have changed eras, and it's now a quarterback and offensive era. And, again, I think next year with all the quarterbacks and everything, will certainly, prove that even more. I mean, we've already seen it with Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones this year. Again, I was saying the other night on your call-in show, I think it really started out with Tua, I think, when he came in that Georgia game and then, just took over and turned. He not only set the stage for it, I think, but if you notice, Alabama has always had this RPO type of offense. Go back to McElroy, McCarron, Blake Simpson, 2014, I guess, throw that in there. They always were like RPOs and just running the football or, option type plays, whatever it was, and then Tua comes along. Heck, even with Jalen Hurts a little bit, I mean, and now you're seeing more of a passing type of era. It's not, like the old school type of, hey, give it to the tailback and let him run it 50 yards. It's, hey, step back, get your O-line, and throw a ball downfield, for like a 99-yarder or something. So it's kind of, it is it's interesting, and I know you were kind of saying the other day, and I would kind of agree. I mean, I prefer the whole defensive dominance in college football, but at the same time, it's very interesting what we're seeing with offenses in terms of quarterbacks and everything.
So just to clarify what I said is I didn't say I prefer defensive dominance. I said I prefer a balance. I prefer variety.
Okay.
I'm the most boring. There are two boring elements to college football right now for me. One would be that the same teams win all the time. And the other one would be that everybody pretty much runs the same style offense, other than the service academies, and Wisconsin's pretty run heavy, but they're still running the same. They're still running the same formations that everybody else is. Everybody runs a spread formation with 4 to 5 wide and with one tailback and or empty backfield. And the offenses are all starting to look the same. When McElroy was the quarterback at Alabama, then McCarron, they ran a pro-style offense is what they ran. I don't know that there was a lot of RPO. It was a pro-style offense that they ran that had 2 running backs in the backfield. So they had a traditional fullback. They had a traditional tight end, which they still utilize more than most teams. And they ran a lot of play action, and they ran the ball 70% of the time, as opposed to now more like probably 40% of the time. I think that things for Alabama changed. Not just, they certainly did when Tua got there, but I think it had more to do with Lane Kiffin. I think that I saw the most notable change in Alabama football in terms of their approach when McCarron left and Blake Sims was the starting quarterback in 2014. And I don't think it had much to do with Blake Sims being the quarterback. It had more to do with Lane Kiffin running the offense.
Right. And I would probably say that's where it kind of started to change, and then it's just progressively gone that direction since then, I would say. We think, especially with what Sarkisian has done the past 2 years at Alabama, and even when Tua was starting his first time around as a sophomore, who was I think it was Brian Dable, who they had. It's more, I guess it comes down to who you have as coordinators and their style of play calling, I guess, that, and it all has to kind of fit together to fit, the players that you put on the field, I would say.
Yeah, people get bored. I hear it all the time, or hate watching the military academies play because of the triple option. I actually find it fascinating. Now, if everybody was running that, I would cease to find it fascinating and I would hate it, think it to be boring. But I like variety. But basically, everybody in the country has figured out, until the defenses somehow adjust to it, the deal with the spread formation and the RPO and the ability of the quarterback to run is it's just a numbers game. And the numbers game is that in a traditional offense, the quarterback was not a running option. He handed the ball off. Therefore, you're suddenly 10 versus 11 on the field. The quarterback's out of the play. He just handed the ball off. He's just standing there. And so suddenly you're 10 versus their 11. But when the quarterback's got the ball in his hands and he's waiting for a snap from a shotgun or spread formation, he's a running threat. And so he's putting the ball in the belly of the running back and reading the defensive end, and he's a threat. And so then as soon as he keeps the ball, the running back can block for him, and it's 11 on 11. And that's what somebody at some point figured out, which basically, I don't know that anybody in the last 10 or 15 years figured it out. What they basically did was they went back to the 1930s and 40s and watched wing T football, because that's what they did. Go watch a game from the 1930s or 40s, and you're going to see a lot of things that you see right now. You're going to see the snap go back to the quarterback in a spread formation, and you're going to see him run the ball. You're going to see him put the ball in the belly of the the running back. You're going to see all sorts of running backs crisscross in the backfield. They just had more running backs in the backfield, and they didn't throw the ball much. But in terms of all the quarterback running the ball and being a threat, that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I mean, and honestly, I mean, it's one of those things, I think, the way in which, you know, I think when offenses evolve over time in college football from, you know, having RPOs to then going, you know, what we're seeing now with a bunch of quarterbacks just wanting to throw the ball. You know, as the offenses change in college football over time, you look at the defensive side, they start to see what's going on with all these great, you know, the Clemsons and Alabamas, and they try to match that up so they can defend that. And, you know, it's just, I don't want to sit here and throw any defense under the bus or whatever, but I mean, it's kind of hard for these defenses to keep up with how much is changing, I think, offensively in college football. Wouldn't you say?
So a number of things have happened both in the NFL and in college football is that the fans predominantly like offense.
Right.
9 out of every 10 fans at least would prefer to watch a 48-45 game than a 13-10 game. Again, I'm not necessarily that guy, but they're not catering to me. I'm the nerd. I'm the guy that is too nuts and bolts football. So they're not marketing to me, the 52-year-old guy that's been watching football for 45 years. Anyway, because I'll watch it regardless, and I'll watch a 10-7 game and enjoy it. So they just, you know, you can go to any sport. People like scoring. People that aren't as invested in the sport, and it's more entertainment, and it's more just not something that they invest their time in or have a great understanding in. Baseball, home runs, basketball, scoring. They don't want defensive games. They want scoring. They want three-pointers and dunks and scoring. That's what people want to see. So what are they going to do? They're going to change the rules and constantly make the rules favor the offense. So all rules changes, I can't think of any rules changes in football over the last 40 years that have favored the defense. They all favor the offense. And there was a constant, at one point in the NFL, there was a constant struggle that they would change the rules to favor the offense. Scoring would go up for about 3 to 4 or 5 years, and then the defenses would catch up, and then they'd have to change the rules again. They kept changing the rules. And their most egregious change of the rules in the NFL were in 1978 when they completely restructured pass interference.
Oh, yeah.
People wouldn't.
I've read that,
If people today would watch football for most of the 1970s in the NFL, they couldn't believe that any receiver would run downfield and a cornerback could just grab them and throw them down if they wanted to. They could do whatever they wanted to them.
Willingly, and just outright do that. I mean, now it's like, God forbid you put your hand on their jersey, you know? I mean, it's just like the rules and just, I mean, it's not the old ball game. Now, I wasn't there in the 70s or whatever, but of course, I've seen a few games here or there on YouTube. People just put games up or whatever the heck, and I'm like, you know, I'll see how this went down like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. And, you know, I've read up a little bit. I mean, like, and you know, you want to talk some penalties and rule changes. What was targeting like back then? Because today, I think targeting is, I'm not going to sit here and say we need to get rid of it, but, I mean, any hard hit or whatever, I mean, don't lead with the crown of the helmet, and sometimes it's hard to figure that out. You know, there's so many people, there's been so many plays that I've seen where targeting is reviewed, and I'm like, you're going to call that targeting or you're not going to call that? I mean, that's one of the most annoying and controversial calls that we have really in college football today, I think. I mean, and it used to not really be like that, I don't think.
Oh, absolutely not. All you have to do is go on YouTube and do a search for the best hits in football or something like that, the hardest hits. And if you look at all those hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, none of them, almost none of them, would be legal today. They'd all be some form of targeting or unnecessary roughness. There was no quarterback slide. There was no protecting a. I can't think of the terminology. I just saw it in an NFL game yesterday. There was no where a player's defenseless player. There was no such thing as any of that. There were no blindside. All blindside hits were, now in the kicking game, you see guys blocked and blindsided, and they'll call it because even though it's a legal block, it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary roughness. That you can't just blindside and blast somebody. That's all been taken out of the game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take some of these calls, Ballard. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Unfortunately, I just missed that call. So this is College Football Coast to Coast. If you're just jumping online here with me, because you do that, I appreciate it. But understand that every Monday, I get together with Pigskin Pete right here at noon Eastern Time every Monday for College Football Coast to Coast. We're just missing Pete today. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Gee, say, I've got an idea how to fix college football.
Okay.
Just to fix it in general, because in my point of view, I think college football is slowly dying because of the college football playoffs. I think the idea was perfect early on. Now it's dying. This is how I would fix it. So we go to 16-team playoff. The playoff committee is killed. It's destroyed. The NCAA takes full ownership of it, and they will run it. The idea of scheduling games 20 years down the road, these universities are killed. They are divided into an NFL scheduling, divided into an NFL type scheduling, to where if you went undefeated one season, you're going to be pinned up against one and two lost teams for your non-conference opponent, and et cetera, all the way down to a winless team. To add that structure, not use it for parity, but to add structure to it. The playoffs will happen all before the NFL playoffs begin. The national championship game will be held in the same stadium every year as the Super Bowl from here on out. Before the playoffs even begin, the national championship game will happen, and I'm referring to the NFL playoffs. What will happen is I'm slowly getting on my father's idea of removing divisions within conferences and removing conference championships and taking the best two teams out of each conference by overall record, and putting them into the playoffs and removing championship games altogether. All these Power 5 conference championship games, and allowing the best two teams out of each conference in, and that includes Group of 5. The best teams out of Group of 5 get a bid in the college football playoffs. The first round is all the way up until the New Year's Six bowls, which would be the main Honor championship hype games, will be held on campus. So the first seed round for playoffs will be held on campus, to where you could have, let's say, Cal, for example, play in the college football championship against University of Florida and Ben Hill Griffin for a playoff game. The end zones, one would be, say, Florida Gators, the other one would say California, all the way up until you hit New Year's Six. Then you start doing these neutral site games. At that moment, you build it all the way up to the championship. You have the championship game. I think this would fix the recruiting log jam that we have, where all of these top recruits want to go to 2 or 3 colleges, and those being Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. It would give them more opportunities to make the playoffs and make a national championship run with smaller teams like TCU, Baylor, and these other smaller teams. I think it would even things out and balance things out. Because college football right now, in my point of view, is dying because of the college football playoffs failing to do their original purpose and job. And instead of the idea of allowing the underdog team in, it's from the get-go screw the underdog team in favor of money making. And I think that is what's killing college football. I mean, this year's national championship game by viewer rating was the lowest rated viewed game in the college football playoff era. That ought to tell you something. That this playoff has lost this playoff committee has lost its original purpose.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Chase, I devised a playoff system of 16 teams. You know when? 1984. I was in high school. I wrote a paper. It must have been like 20 pages long and devised a 16-team playoff. And then actually I went to college and I revised it and I turned it in for another term paper. I had to argue with the professor to get him to let me write a term paper about college football playoff systems. So anyway, I'm totally on board with you. So here's a few things that I either have questions or I just want to push back on. So my first question would be, how do you select these 16 teams?
A March Madness style committee, to where you'd have a selection show to where the best two teams by .500 record or win-loss record from each individual conference, and that includes group of 5, would be selected in. So the best two, so it would be, let's say out of the SEC, I'm just throwing up something up in the air. Let's say it's Florida and Georgia are the best two by power ranking teams out of the SEC. So you take those two who are above a .500 record and launch them into the playoffs. That's how you do it. And it does. And if let's say one of them is 9-3 and the other's undefeated, so be it. You take those two teams and put them into the playoffs. That's how I would structure it.
So you kind of lost me there. This is based on a computer or this is based on a selection committee?
The selection committee.
Okay. So you said at one point you're going to get rid of the selection committee, but you're just going to make another selection committee.
One that is completely unbiased and unfiltered.
Well, you know that's impossible, Chase. You know that everybody's biased to some extent. So you're not going to get rid of that as long as you have people making the decision.
I get a group of people who have one from every university. That would be the group of people to where then you could get an unfiltered opinion.
You'd have 130 people on the committee.
Yep.
Okay. And you're going to include the group of 5. So we could have a playoff with 16 Power 5s. We could have next year that we could have 13 Power 5s and 3 group of 5s. There's no stipulation on who makes it.
Nope.
Okay.
Whoever finishes, the top 2 teams who finish the best from each conference get an automatic bid in. And then the week after the season is over, the playoffs begin. Okay.
We've got an issue here, though, Chase, if I'm following this right. We've got 10 conferences, and if the top 2 make it, that's 20 teams.
Not a 6, but it'd be 16.
We've got 10 conferences.
Narrow it down to 16.
So you're including the group of 5. We've got 10 conferences, and if I heard that right, if you're taking the top 2 teams from each conference, then you've got 20 teams.
Well, you'd say if teams didn't make the .500, even though they had a good record, you don't allow them in. You have to have .500 or above.
.500 or above what?
Or above the .500. If you're below .500, you don't get it. You don't get it.
.500 what? .500 what?
.500 win-loss record. .500 win-loss
Well, I
record.
would hope everybody in the playoff has a 500 record. That's going to be your standard? Go 6-6?
No. You have to have, so if you lose 4 games, you can't get in. That'd be essentially what it'd be.
Well, that's not a 500 record.
You win it.
That's not a 500 record, Chase. A 500 record is even. Same number of wins and losses. That's a 500 record. 6-6 is 500.
What I would do is I would have it to where you'd only, if you lost 4 games, you can't make it. But if you lost only to 1 or 2 or 3, you could get in.
Okay. Well, I like the idea, but I'm not understanding your criteria, but that's fine. So my next question would be, when you say you want an NFL-type scheduling formula, I agree to an extent. I want to take a scheduling formula. I want to make a scheduling formula just like the NFL does have a scheduling formula, but I'm not going to take the NFL scheduling formula because it does you hit it on the nail that the intent of the NFL is to create parity. So if you take a 14-2 team, they've got a tougher schedule than your 2-14 team from last year. I don't want to do that personally. I want to create an equitable schedule, a fair schedule. I don't want to penalize you just because you're really good or give you a boost or a lift just because you're really bad.
What I would do is the way the scheduling format would work is whatever team non-conference finished an equal record this year as you would face non-conference the next year. You'd face 3 teams that finished an equal record as you this year, next year. That's what I would do. So let's say, for example, Florida goes undefeated, wins national championship. Next year, non-conference, Florida's going to face, let's say, a 1-loss Clemson, a 1-loss Ohio State, a 1-loss Notre Dame, teams like that, and so on and so forth. Undefeated would be the only, I guess you could say, clause that would allow 1-loss team to face that undefeated team. Or if there was an undefeated group of 5 teams, they would face that undefeated team as a non-conference. And what I would do is I would sprinkle the non-conference games in the season. I wouldn't stack them up either in the beginning of the season or the end of the season. They would be sprinkled within to where you'd go, let's say you have an SEC 9-game conference schedule. You face Florida faces, let's say, Georgia, LSU, Alabama. Then they get non-conference, then back to SEC, then non-conference, then back to SEC, then non-conference.
All right, Chase. We get it. So you're going to hear my scheduling breakdown and also my playoff format breakdown in the next few weeks. So I'm not going to go through it right now and bore everyone because I will explain it in a video. And if you don't get a chance to watch a video, certainly you can call back at any time. You know that. And I will explain it at some point. But people, I'm sure, have heard a number of times my playoff remedy and what my solution is. So, Chase, we appreciate you calling.
Thank you. And everybody hit the like button.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to the call will start.
All right. This is typically college football coast to coast every Monday at noon Eastern time. So please let everybody know that Pigskin Pete and myself are here every Monday at noon Eastern time. Pigskin could not make it today. And of course, we miss him. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing, bro?
Hey, DeAndre. I'm good. What's up?
I've been waiting to talk to you.
That's what I hear.
Yes. So I know you're about equality and all that other stuff. So right now, Nick Saban is his 7th championship.
Yes.
So So right now, people are saying that Saban, by today's standards, is the best coach ever, right?
Yes.
Best college coach.
Yes.
I'd like to make an argument on that one.
Okay.
Let's go with Eddie Robinson,
All right.
Grambling State coach. And I'm going to make this argument, and I'm going to see what you got to say about it.
Okay.
When he was at Grambling State, pretty much everybody was equal in talent and had the same amount of players, same amount of facilities and stuff. Where Nick Saban, he gets a chance to maybe, handpick his schedule a little bit. They might play in New Mexico State. Same with Clemson. They play the Centennial, South Carolina State. Teams that are not on their level.
Mm-hmm.
Get to pad their schedule. And sometimes, I think Jordan Argument's made this argument for years. Why does Alabama get to play Tennessee every year and Tennessee's not that good, or they might have Vanderbilt? So I just like people to look at Eddie Robinson as maybe one of the best coaches of all time because he has 9 national championships. And as we both know, those times wasn't equal, and that wasn't his fault. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that I know what type of schedule he played back then or what all the things were, but I think it was more equal compared to what Nick Saban goes through right now.
All right. That's a great point there. So I'll make a few comments and I'll also have a few questions. So for anybody who's not aware of Eddie Robinson, please Google him. He coached at Grambling forever and was the all-time winningest coach in college football. He passed Bear Bryant, correct? In all-time wins? I lost track of the all-time wins list at some point. And then Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno passed Eddie Robinson at some point, correct?
Right.
Yes. Okay. So this is what I agree with. It is impossible for us to equate or give enough value to the black, or I will say Negro leagues, because that was the term that was used in baseball, of course, because we just don't know. But we can speculate. We can see that in today's college football landscape, what is it? About 70% of the players in major college football are black.
Right.
So if 70% of them are black, and then if we take it to another level, if we say out of the starters and the really good players, the impact players, let's say it goes up to 80 or 85%. I'm just throwing out a number. It's more significant. That obviously we can deduct that if we went back before 1970 or so, that the segregation lasted at different schools in different conferences in different parts of the country and broke down at different times. Of course, Jim Brown was able to play at Syracuse in the mid-50s, but the SEC didn't have black players until the very late 60s. So it wasn't just all of a sudden in 1960, boom, everybody's got black players and they're represented as much as they should be. Then it would be easier to figure out. It'd be easier to say, okay, well, in 1960, let's count national championships as being more meaningful. But it was a process. So there's no question, because of the tremendous talent and contribution and excellence of play of black players, that Eddie Robinson coached for generations great black players at Grambling. Both played for him and that he had to coach against. Now, I used to be more educated on his career in terms of, I remember watching the Grambling game that they would show on TV, and they still do now. It's usually the same weekend as either the first bowl games and Eddie Robinson. So his last year was sometime in like the early 90s. That would be maybe early 2000s. I'm forgetting.
Yes, sir. Yeah, around that time.
Yeah. So you make a great point on all those fronts. So Nick, the one thing I will say about Nick Saban is, to his credit, not that his record has to be defended in any way, is that if let's say Ohio State continues to win at this rate for the next 50 years. They're going 11-1 basically every year for the next 50 years at Ohio State. And let's say Ryan Day leaves 3 years from now, then they get another coach, he stays for 8 years, and they just go through coach after coach after coach, and it just doesn't seem to matter. They just keep winning and winning and winning and winning. Those coaches all obviously did a really good job, but you would start to question, okay, they're doing a good job, but are they truly great coaches? There is something else involved here that guarantees that this school just keeps winning and winning and winning. As you know, Alabama has a great tradition, arguably the greatest in college football history. Some people don't think it's an argument. I do, but it's one of the greatest in history. They always won. They've got facilities, they got money, they got resources, they got tradition and prestige and everything. But as you well know, Alabama between 1993 and the time Nick Saban showed up in 2007, for those 14 or 15 years, wasn't winning much of anything. And so he did elevate the program considerably. It's not a foregone conclusion, even though it seems like it now, that Alabama is just going to win. Nick Saban made Alabama.
Right. That's the same thing with what he did at LSU.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I wish I had all my notes so could I have some more questions to add on to it, because I knew you were going to make that argument. But like I said, let's say Vanderbilt, for example. I know Alabama doesn't play Vanderbilt every year, but Vanderbilt does not care about football. When I say that, they don't put the money into their facilities like they did. But that's what my point is, that when Eddie Robinson was going against Tennessee State, Florida A&M, Southern, whoever else, they beat Louisiana Tech, they beat Temple, they beat Hawaii. They were beating teams that were higher level than what his facilities had and his type of program. And the travel is a lot better compared even what my uncles went through in the 80s at Clemson. The travel is better than what they had at that time. And they would have to travel long distances to play these games. So that's why I say, I'm just giving the viewers something to think about when they say, well, who's the best of all time? And what other facility, other schools had to go through at that time. I know it's Martin Luther King Day, but I'm just trying to show that point of view. I think that Saban probably is the greatest coach. I think Jimmy Johnson's probably the best coach I've ever seen, but I think Nick Saban is the best coach currently at this time. But because we don't know what Eddie Robinson would have did if everything was equal. Say, hey, everybody in the Southeast, y'all can play. Because we know Ivy League schools, Ohio State, Southern Cal, Michigan, the argument that always use social stuff, play black players. But in the South, they didn't. And we can go ahead and say it. Right now, the best football is played in the South outside of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
The best football is usually played in the South, and Ohio State comes down to Florida. I don't know about Georgia, but Florida and Texas to get their players out of this particular region to play, just like they did back in the day. But I just want to bring that to your viewers and give you something else to talk about.
Well, we appreciate that. I appreciate that, because we
got
do
a whole lot more for you.
We do need to give credit to those people that are now real ardent, educated college football fans. Certainly are knowledgeable about Eddie Robinson to a certain extent, but he's, as you said, he's not given anywhere close to the credit or brought into these conversations because he didn't coach what is considered major college football. So you'll see some lists where he's included, other lists where he's not included. And unfortunately, because of the injustices in this country for decade after decade after decade after decade, whether you're talking football or baseball in particular, those two sports, you need to take all those things into consideration. Is Babe Ruth the best baseball player of all time?
Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, and in college basketball.
Yeah, especially college basketball. There's definitely a bunch of injustice with that one. But hey, Mark, I keep listening. Don't worry, I got more for you.
Okay, you can call anytime. You know that.
All right, Mark.
All right, DeAndre, I appreciate it. And of course, we appreciate DeAndre BGPO Football Funk for the Super Chat contribution. So head on over to Just type this in the search bar on YouTube. BGPO Football Funk, BGPO Football Funk, and you get DeAndre's take on the NFL and college football. And also, Wilkie, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I believe it was Wilkie who said, let us know, along with a number of other people, that Jeremy Pruitt has just been fired. Therefore, I've got to go to work on that. And also, King saying UCLA is going to be the 4th seed in the college football playoff this year. King, thank you so much for the super chat as well. This is college football coast to coast, typically with Pigskin Pete. You're stuck with me today. So who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Dominic. How you doing this afternoon?
Hey, Dominic. I'm good. What's up?
Nothing much, really. I was just watching some NHL hockey, and the first period is over.
Great.
Blue Jackets and Red Wings. Red Wings are up 1-0.
That's tremendous, because that's what I was going to be adding next, was going to be an NHL update portion of the show. That was going to be the next thing I was going to go to here, was we were going to add a NHL update maybe on the hour.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I heard that Urban Meyer, he did pretty well in college football. I can't remember which teams he coached for. Do you know?
Urban Meyer?
Yes.
I have no idea where he coached. No. So Urban Meyer coached at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and Ohio State. Urban Meyer has the best winning percentage in modern college football history. So if that translates to doing pretty well, then he did pretty well.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I'm kind of busy at the moment, so I just wanted to come in for a short time, and I'm going to get back to the hockey game intermission break.
Awesome. Get back to the hockey. Thanks, Dominic.
No problem.
NHL updates. Urban Meyer, pretty good. All right. Let's get through the live chat as well. We're here at pushing 1 o'clock. So again, it's every Monday at noon Eastern time with Pigskin Pete, college football coast to coast. It's always a good time. Man, I hope our viewership's going to be better in the off season. My goodness, we were just blasting away with Pigskin Pete over the last two or three shows with really good viewership. I know that people shut off the college football after the season's over, but we're going to be here. We've got as much content, maybe more content to get out here during the off season. It's college football coast to coast with Mark, who's on the line.
Good afternoon, Mark. This is Kevin, Dallas, Georgia. How you doing today?
Hey, Kevin. I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just wanted to chime in as far as two of the last three callers. I can't do the NHL. I'm sorry, Mark. Can't do the NHL.
Yeah, you'll never have to worry about that, Kevin.
Okay.
I will be doing needlepoint on here before I'm doing NHL. So don't worry about that.
Indeed. And it was just in regards, and just briefly, as far as the 16-team playoff, and it's just a matter, I looked at it, normally when it comes to the playoffs, Mark, I'm not going to lie to you, as I've gotten older, when I had those 2s and 3s in front of my age, my outlook was one way. Now that I have a 5 in front of my age, my outlook is different. I'm like the guy that'll get off my lawn.
I hear you. I'm right there with you.
But the thing is, but as time is going on, Mark, I've stated, okay, I really looked at it, I looked at it soberly in the respect that, okay, a 16-team playoff, and I looked at it as far as, in a nutshell, survival of the fittest. Because even when you go with a 16-team playoff, when it's all said and done, it should be, I'm not going to say that it is, because as we know, any given Sunday, but really I guess it's any given Saturday, when it comes to the playoffs, hey, you can't lose. But the thing is, I think when it's all said and done, you would have to win 4 games over 4 consecutive weekends. So by that being the case, if you are 2, 3, or even in some cases 4 deep, you should unfortunately win that battle of attrition.
Okay.
Now, on the other hand, I'm listening, Mark.
No, I want you to continue. I was just confirming that. I was just saying yes,
And
sir.
then, and in regards to the caller, and as far as comparing, contrasting Eddie Robinson, Nick Saban, the one thing I just wanted to chime in regards to that is that okay, and it's a reverse monopoly, if that's even a phrase, and that is when it comes to the time in which Coach Robinson coached, as well as Bear Bryant, and now as far as Nick Saban. Eddie Robinson had, for lack of a better way to say it, and it wasn't what he wanted, and it wasn't what the country wanted then, nor what the country wants now, is that he had a monopoly as far as the best black players. Because the best black players were only going to Grambling. Now, yes, they did have the opportunities for Jackson State, as far as Alabama A&M, Alabama State, etc. But the best black players, the creme de la creme, went to Grambling.
Why was
that's
that?
the only way that he could have been the all-time leading coach up until, 20 years ago. Well, say maybe 20, 30 years ago.
But my question is, so I just have a follow-up question to that, Kevin. Is there a reason, though, that they went to Grant? Was it because of him? Was it because they had more money, just better facilities, just a better place to play, better education? Was there a reason for it?
You stated pretty much all of them. Because the thing is, when it comes to en masse, as far as players going to a particular institution, okay, when it comes to Alabama A&M, the only alumnus that you can think of from Alabama A&M is John Stallworth.
Oh, I was going to get that.
Jackson State,
yeah, I was going to jump on that one, Kevin. John Stallworth. Yep, Alabama A&M.
But when it comes to Grambling, Grambling, you could shoot all your fingers and toes,
yeah,
and you still would not have finished naming Grambling alumnus.
Absolutely.
And then on the other hand, what would you say would be easier? What would be the easier road, Mark? Would it be a matter of, okay, Nick Saban, Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, etc., having 85 scholarships, or Eddie Robinson and Bear Bryant having unlimited scholarships? And in Bear Bryant's case, which he did it, and which is common knowledge, okay, he recruited Mark, and he recruited Mark's rival at another school, not because he wanted Mark as much, he just wanted both players so that Mark's friend wouldn't be playing against him also.
Yep.
So what is easier, limited by 85 scholarship, or having unlimited scholarships?
Well, because of what you just mentioned, it's better to have the unlimited. Otherwise, you can only play so many guys. You could have 1 million scholarships, and you can only play so many guys. Only so many guys can be on the field or contributing to your team to where it's effective. But because of what you just stated, yes, you're keeping capable players away from other teams.
And unfortunately, Mark, that's what it's about, whether it was in the 60s or whether it's in 2021. And that is, a coach wants to win. And he's going to, unfortunately, win by all means necessary. And if it's a matter of, okay, I'm going to be 3 or 4 deep as far as the quarterback position, or not, I'm going to choose to be 3 to 4 deep at the quarterback position. And that's what kind of it just pretty much bridges as far as what I think the quandary for Ohio State will be for the next 4 years. And it's going to be a matter of, it's not going to be in the other position for that quarterback. Now, would it be safe to say that Ohio State's going to run through the Big 10, Big 12, whatever the name is for the month next season? I think it would be safe to say that they will. They will be hard-pressed to lose a game next year as far as conference game. But the thing is, when it comes to their quarterback position, you have 2 that's returning. You have 1 that is coming in, which is highly thought of as far as Kyle McCord. Then in the class of 22, you have Quinn Ewers. So my question is, whether it's new math or old math, Mark, 4 can't go into 1, 3 can't go into 1, only 1 can go into 1, even as far as correctly. So that being the case, how many quarterbacks are going to wind up transferring from Ohio State? Because their position seems to be similar to what Alabama was. I guess that would have been about maybe 4 years ago, when you had a quote quarterback named as the starter, and they had 4 quarterbacks. Then you had this guy that came out of nowhere to play against USC named Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts take the position. Then after that particular game, you went from having 4 quarterbacks to 1. So I'm just interested, Mark, to see what will Ohio State do with their quarterback quandary. And it's not as much this year, but as far as I guess it would be at the beginning of 21-22 when they go from a quarterback room of 5 to possibly, at best, 2 or 3.
Well, there is nothing that Ryan Day can say or do that's going to keep all of them. You know, he could be, they could love the campus, the university, everything about their teammates. They still are highly competitive and they're 4 and 5 stars. So you know that they're going to want to play. So I would think that, as has happened in the past with, let's say, Joe Burrow, that at some point in the competition, 1 or 2 of them will see the writing on the wall. And most likely those 2 are going to be the 1 or 2, not that Ryan Day doesn't want to keep them, but if he had to lose 1 or 2, they're most likely going to be the ones that he would want to lose in favor of the other 2. So it still works out that you want to recruit and sign the best players, in particular quarterback, because you're still going to wind up with the 2 best or the 3 best, if you follow me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that was just really the thing when I was looking forward to the 21-22 season and beyond, as in what could be the burr in the saddle when it comes to Ohio State University. And that's really the only thing I can find. It's just, who is going to be the next man up, and then who's going to be willing to, wait my time, go through the process of, because we know that when it comes to college football as well as football, as far as football, basketball is a contact sport, football is a collision sport. By that being the case, it's going to be attrition. And so it's going to be a matter of which young man or young men, for that matter, will be able to say, I'm going to sit back because, hey, my time is going to come. And then also, I need to pick your brain about this, Mark. I was just going back as far as over the past decade when it comes to, quote, name institutions. And initially I was going to try to come up with a baker's dozen, but when it's all said and done, I couldn't find the 13th school. I could only come up with 12. And what I wanted to put at your perusal was schools that have won a national championship, schools that have the infrastructure, whether it comes to the finances, facilities, etc. And also, when it's all said and done, pardon me, as far as the recruiting dynamic, that say, for instance, if the job became available, would I be interested? And then as far as my baker's dozen was as follows, is as follows.
Okay.
Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Ohio State, USC, Oklahoma, Clemson, Texas, Miami, Michigan, and Florida State. So those were my 12. Now, those institutions off the top, you have LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, and FSU. Those are only, I would say, few schools that have won a national championship over the past decade.
Okay. So I wrote down as fast as I could, and I only got to 10. But
okay, shoot. Would it be, did you have Michigan, Florida State?
Yes, I got the end there. I got.
Okay, my bad. Miami, Texas, Clemson.
Miami, Texas. Okay, Clemson. Okay, so I'm missing one.
Oklahoma, USC.
I got the USC. Okay, I got all 12. All right. So what do you need to know?
Now, of those institutions that became available, which one or ones would you be most inclined to jump on, and which of those would you be least inclined?
If they all needed head coaches tomorrow, and I was a head coach looking for a job?
Yes, sir.
Well, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Texas, Miami, Florida State have one advantage, and that's recruiting. They have players right in their backyard. Georgia and Texas have not huge recruiting advantages, but let's say all of a sudden Alabama wasn't Alabama. As you well know, the football that's played in Alabama is at a very high level, but the population's not huge. So you need to go outside Alabama. Georgia's become almost like Texas, Florida, and California. It's quality and numbers of top NFL prospects has skyrocketed in recent years because of population shift and because of just better high school football being played in Georgia. And you could put USC in there too, in Southern California. Clemson's got to go elsewhere for players. Alabama does. Ohio State does, even though there's excellent high school football in Ohio. It used to be one of the top 4 or 5 states in the nation 30 years ago. Now it's more like 7th or 8th. And there's a drop off there. So if you look at NFL players and where they played high school football, Ohio's still like 7th or 8th, but that's not good enough. So Ohio State's got to go to Texas and Georgia and Florida for players. Oklahoma's in the worst spot when it comes to recruiting out of all those. And Michigan and Oklahoma are the worst 2 places to go in terms of recruiting. So they would be at the bottom of my list. And it wouldn't just come down to recruiting. Basically, we know that even though Ohio State's not in that top 4 or 5 in terms of recruiting footprint, that they have massive income, massive resources, and ability to go get players. So that's what they do, and that's why they're as successful as they are. So you can usually answer these kind of questions by eliminating first before choosing. So I'm eliminating Oklahoma and Michigan right out of the gate. I don't think USC's that invested in football, compared to the other ones. Of course, they're invested in football. They love football, and they're putting an effort towards it, but not to the level. They're not so just hell-bent on winning at USC like Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. And plus, USC, you got to compete with the Lakers and the Dodgers. And, I want to be the king of the sports environment where I go. I don't want to be an afterthought. So I'm eliminating USC. So you know that you're talking to an Ohio State fan. So, of course, that's my bias. I want to be the head coach at Ohio State. But I'm trying to discard that. I want to go to Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, maybe LSU or Florida. I want to go to the SEC or Texas or Ohio State and coach. And there's too much politics. There's anytime that the Texas job's brought up, there's all sorts of politics that they've had issues in how many hands you need to shake and people you need to pat on the back or pat on the rear. And please, at Texas, that sounds like a political nightmare. So I don't want anything to do with that. So I'm going to mark them off my list too. I'm going to go coach in the SEC or at Ohio State. And probably at Georgia.
I would have to agree because, one thing that you could do as far as at any of those institutions is wherever you are, just do a 250 to 300 mile radius.
Yeah.
Every direction, and then boom, you can get that quote player or players to come to your institution. But one thing I need to do briefly, Mark, is when it comes to one of the guys in the chat, he had stated that Tennessee was poison. And I have to beg to differ because the one thing you have to look at the history of the program. When I say the history, I look at more so Fulmer up until today. And that is when it comes to the University of Tennessee, how in the world were they able to accomplish something under T. Martin that they weren't able to accomplish under Peyton Manning? And that was to win a national championship. You had to recruit. So obviously, Fulmer was able to recruit in order to win that because I think that was around about somewhere between 94 and 96.
His first year? When they won the national championship. 98. 98. Yep.
Okay, so 98. So that being the case, how in the world can a job be poisonous when you win? If I'm not mistaken, that would have been around about, would that have been BCS?
It was the first BCS championship game that they won.
So you were able to do that under T. Martin, and the program is poisonous, but then you weren't able to do that under Peyton Manning.
Well, they were still extremely good. They finished in the top 5 in the nation twice under Peyton Manning. So it wasn't like that they weren't at that same level. They just didn't get the job done in one game, basically.
But it just blew me away as far as when I read that, as far as saying that the program is poisonous. I just think just as a matter of not having, quote, the right man. And, as far as, because I know, and I mean, I'm not going to go into details as far as how Foreman got the Tennessee job, but hey, he got it, and he was able to win a championship, but they haven't been able to do it since. And then I think it's just a matter of what is enough time? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? Because if you go by winning percentage, Butch Jones had the winning percentage, but then hey, he couldn't do what many other coaches couldn't do as far as against their rivals. He couldn't beat Alabama, and then he went from coaching against Alabama to smoking cigars every second, third weekend in October when Alabama beat Tennessee. And I think that's going on at least 7 or 8 years now. So.
Oh, I don't think Tennessee has not beaten Alabama since before Nick Saban got there. They haven't beaten Alabama since like 06, 07, something like that. It's been like 14 years. Yeah, something like that.
So that being the case, I mean, I'm just, what is it? And even when it comes to what's going on with them, as far as and I think I read as far as gonna get the Duke as far as the show cause as far as Pruitt is concerned, and it seems like that was an inside job.
Well, that just
really kind of
well, this is the last comment I'll make, and not to rush you off, just because I really have to run. Because we should have wrapped up at 1 o'clock. I've got some appointments coming up and I need to get off the air. But the only thing I'll say is that it just goes to show you how quickly things change in college football. So Pruitt takes over a situation in which nobody's won there since Fulmer. Butch Jones had 2 good seasons, 9-4, 9-4, but basically didn't meet expectations. So anyway, Pruitt comes in, gets off to a rough start. They get off to a rough start last year. They lose their first 2 games to Georgia State and BYU. They have this remarkable turnaround, albeit against the weaker portion of their schedule. But anyway, they win 6 in a row at the end. He goes 8-5. He wins a bowl game. He's got everything going on his side. He has another great recruiting class, which he's brought in nothing but tremendous recruiting classes. And then they have a bad season in a pandemic year in which I thought he was going to get a little bit more leeway than that and have at least next year to right the wrong. And he's gone. A season after winning a bowl game and winning his last 6 games of the year, that this short season in which they went 2-6, 3-7, whatever it was, 3-7, I believe, he's out. So, Kevin, I appreciate the call. Call back anytime, sir.
Will do. Thanks, and take care, Mark.
Yeah, so Pigskin Pete, myself, every Monday at noon Eastern time, we go from noon to 1 Eastern time. We're here. We miss Pigskin. Hope he's doing well. And I want to honor this super chat from Christ the Savior. Christ the Savior 888. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all these questions, unfortunately, because I've got records to do. Clemson, Penn State, Minnesota, UCLA stuff coming. But what do we got here? Look out, Mark. Coming at you hot. What's your fondest college football season as a fan? Covering as a worker, and for many of you that don't know, I've been covering college football for like 30 years. So I was a news anchor, reporter, sports director, covering from the SEC standpoint, ESPN 19 years. So that's what he's talking about there. Also, your best and first in-game attendance memory. Mine was spoiled by Lawrence Phillips in 95, Saban's number 1. Okay. Christ the Savior 888. I definitely have to honor that super chat. We don't have enough time, though. I'm late for an appointment. But I will get to all those questions. I will mark it down right here. And the next time we are on in a call-in show, doing a live stream, Christ the Savior, just remind me that I need to answer your questions. And I will. My promise. I'm a man of my word. Thank you so much for everybody dropping by. And again, the individual contributions and sponsorships is what keeps us going here. So thank you so much for joining. We will see you soon. Keep it locked in here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We're dropping videos all the time, and I will let you know when we're going live next. See you.